How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Box to Box. We've got another game coming up and it's a big one, people. And we're playing Newcastle at the Emirates tomorrow evening. And obviously, we've seen how Newcastle have started the season and not only started the season, but maintained their good start to the season all the way up until now. And it's been a long time coming for Newcastle. I mean, I've got a big Newcastle fan with me. You won't be familiar with his face, but listen, he's been a big supporter of my content, the Big Six, Box to Box, my AFTV stuff. So I thought, why not reach out to one of the supporters of the channel, one of the supporters of my channel, and talk to him a bit about Newcastle, considering I've been speaking to you for a little while and you've been supporting Newcastle since the Mike Ashley days. So it'll be an interesting conversation to say the least. But I want to welcome Philippe to the show from Australia. Philippe, how you been?
Very good, man. Obviously not as good as Arsenal, but much higher than it's been in recent years, as you can tell.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you look at Arsenal and Newcastle this year, we've been the talking points, to say the least. I mean, after Arsenal's amazing start so far, we just continue winning. One loss this season, one draw away from home. Both, well, one to United, one to Southampton. Aside from that, all wins in the Premier League. Looking at Newcastle, I think your last loss came end of August, a few days before our
Yeah,
only loss against United. I think it was away to Liverpool you lost, right?
it was the controversial 2-1, but apart from that, it's been pretty good. I mean, a fair few amount of draws, a bit too much for my liking, but in terms of clean sheets, I think we're leading the clean sheets. We've got the best defense in the league. Behind, I think Arsenal, you guys are second,
Yeah.
and we rarely ever concede anymore. I think that's the biggest difference I've seen this season is that we used to be a team that would lead goals, and now we don't. Like we only conceded 11 goals, and 5 of them have come against City and Liverpool. So you take those games out of it, we've only conceded 6 goals in 15 games. So we kept
Yeah.
9 clean sheets. So it's insane, honestly.
Oh yeah, there's that 3-3 draw it was with Man City,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's pretty
Well,
much it. Like whenever we do concede, it will usually just be a goal, which is why going into this game, I think it's going to be low scoring. I've seen some people predicting, 3-1 Arsenal. I don't think that's going to happen. Even if we lose, it'll be very low scoring.
you was watching the Big Six and the predictions there,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
No, one of us predicted 3-1. Everyone else predicted a lot tighter games, 2-1s and 2-0s. But before we get into our predictions, Philippe, we'll save that for the end of the show. I'm sure a lot of people have, well, you saw mine already, and a lot of people have probably saw my prediction on the Big Six, but we'll keep it moving anyway. Philippe, I want to ask you first and foremost, how did you get into supporting Newcastle, considering, it's a new era for Newcastle and, Newcastle are going to get a lot more fans in the coming
Mm.
years, considering the ownership and the ambitions of the ownership this season, how it's gone so far. Definitely ahead of the curve. I don't think anyone expected Newcastle to be this close to challenging for a top 4 position this early on in the new ownership's reign. So talk to me a bit about how you started supporting Newcastle.
Yeah, so my dad's supported Liverpool, and as a kid, I'd occasionally watch as many Premier League games as I could catch. So we were living in Singapore, and the time difference, like most games, would be very late at night, so I couldn't watch them. I'd only be able to watch. I know people hate the 12:30 kickoffs in the UK, but I would always like them because it was within my bedtime, so I could watch them. And one of the first games I ever watched was Newcastle. I think smacking Tottenham. I'm pretty sure it was 4-0 in like '03 or 4. I'm pretty sure. And ever since then, that was sort of the team I attached to, and slowly was more of a casual fan. And then as I got older, by the time 16, 17, I became a full-fledged Newcastle fan. And I guess it's more the similarities between Liverpool and Newcastle kind of is why I probably picked Newcastle, working class club. They both had similar players, managers, and eventually I just decided to pick it. I didn't really want to go for a, big six team. It felt too easy to do that. And obviously, up until recently, I was regretting that decision probably, but it's come good. And yeah, it's been a hell of a journey.
Yeah, you said the 03-04 season. I definitely have fond
Well,
memories of that 03-04 season. So you definitely didn't go for the glory. Let's put it that much. It's been
no,
hard work
but
being a
I
Newcastle fan.
suffered from Steve Bruce football for enough. I think all of us Newcastle fans have suffered from that. So Steve McLaren as well. Some bad footballers come to Newcastle, but it's safe to say right now we're playing some of the best football in the league. But I wouldn't say as good as Arsenal. I think you guys, I would say the most entertaining team in Europe right now.
Yeah, Europe. Yeah, but I
I don't
haven't
really see
watched.
anyone else.
I haven't really watched much European football this season. I've just been in awe of Arsenal's performances, but off the top of my head, we're definitely up there. I mean, in terms of the league, we have been the best team in the league.
Mm.
If you don't believe it from me, if you don't believe it from Philippe, Pep Guardiola's also said it, so I'm sure he holds a bit more clout in the game, so you can believe him. But this season, Philippe, Eddie Howe came in. I think was it in just before January or around January
Yeah, it was
last
like
year.
late December, early
Yeah.
January.
Did you expect to be this close to challenging for top four midway through his first full season, midway through the ownership's first full season?
Definitely not. I think a lot of my Newcastle friends, we were all like asking each other what was the prediction this season, and I had a very conservative like eighth, and there was more being a bit picky. I didn't want to get Conference League, and I didn't think we were good enough for like the top six. So I was like, I'll be happy with eighth. But the fact that we're third, we're like really close to like Man City. Obviously, when I was close to Arsenal, but if we actually could finish our chances against Leeds on the weekend, we probably could have been second. And the fact that I don't know if you saw like there was a graphic on Sky Sports that showed like match week 14 last season and match week 14 this season. And last season we
No.
were bottom and we'd won like just one game out of 14. And this season we're third. And I don't think if you asked any Newcastle fan if they could have predicted that, none of them would have. It's insane, and I think it's credit to Eddie Howe and these players. I know people will mention the money, which yeah, obviously that comes into it. But we've seen Chelsea, we've seen United, we've seen Forest spend a lot of money bringing in players, and we're ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean, talking about graphics, I saw one recently where it showed Arsenal's 2021 season where we won 14 games across the whole season. This season we've
Wow.
won 14 out of our first 16. So you can see how far we've come in a short space of time, and you can see how far Newcastle's come in a shorter space of time. And I guess for Newcastle, Newcastle's fans, Newcastle's ownership, the only way is up right now, I believe. You know,
Yeah,
challenging for top
definitely.
four. It seems like league titles are on the cards in the next few years. When you hear about the ownership's ambitions and the way they've moved so far, being owners of Newcastle, I mean, you didn't have the loudest of summers, I'll call it, but you've had one of the best in terms of good recruitment, a good preseason under your belts, a good manager to take you from where you was to where you are now. I look across your team. Kieran Trippier has been a class signing. Almiron's really kind of stepped it up now with a better manager, a more attacking manager in Eddie Howe. And Botman, another quality
Mm.
signing. He's in there for a Defender of the Year shout. Shaw's been good this season. I mean, who hasn't
Yeah,
been good for Newcastle? But yeah, who's the standouts for you so far this season?
I would definitely say Kieran Trippier has definitely been a standout. I think it's just because when we were signing him, I think a lot of people had the thought of this was the money signing for him. It was like a quick paycheck at the end of his career, but
Mhm.
and he didn't start off like great because he obviously had a lot of injury problems. But this season, he's been our leader. He's been like consistent. He's been like ahead of above shoulders upon everyone else, and I think he's led that back line because that back four of Shah, Botman, Dan Burn, and Kieran Trippier has been phenomenal. And as I said, we don't really concede goals now, and I think Kieran Trippier has been one of the main reasons why we shore up defenses much more. And I mean, apart from Kieran Trippier, obviously Bruno Guimaraes has been a superstar, someone that
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
anyone saw coming. But it's been, as you said, we've been making smart signings. I don't think, barring Chris Wood, I don't think really any of our signings have been too disappointing yet. Obviously, we've got to see what Alexander Isaac does. Obviously, he's had injury problems.
Yeah, I tend to forget that. I forgot to mention Bruno, and our paths has crossed a couple of times in the past 12 months. Bruno being the first of those. I really wanted Bruno to come to Arsenal. I know a lot of Arsenal fans wanted him over here, and then Newcastle got the job done for a relatively good fee. And he's really kicked on from there. And we know that infamous game for Arsenal fans at the end of the
Mm.
season where Newcastle crushed our top four hopes, ended our top four hopes
Yeah.
with that 2-0 Monday night victory.
Yeah, I didn't take any pride in that. I've got a soft spot for Arsenal as well. Robert Perez, I think, is like one of my favorite footballers ever. So, type of football you don't see come around a lot. So I didn't really celebrate Arsenal not getting top four, but especially because the week before we got smashed 5-0 by Man City. So it was an unexpected performance.
Yeah.
But, we've got the game as a game, I guess. We only finished 11th and we're trying to get top four this season. And I think Arsenal, you can see there's it used to be with Arsenal, like if they made mistakes in a game, they'd crumble. But this season, I've seen players make mistakes, like Philippe has scored an own goal, come up to the other end, he'll score a goal. I've seen Gabriel make mistakes. He'll
Hmm.
again score a goal at the other end. Like this, the mentality of this Arsenal team, I haven't seen it ever. Well, at least in my lifetime, apart from the 03 or 04 season, that was the last time I remembered an Arsenal team that had like this mentality, this winning mentality. They just never gave up, and they feel connected. I mean, and the thing that's scary about this Arsenal team is, as I mentioned before, this team is similar to that Liverpool team that won the title. But that Liverpool team, they were all older. They were like sort of just at the prime age. A lot of these guys are like what 20, 21. So you guys
Yeah.
could have these guys for a couple of years winning titles, hopefully,
Yeah.
until we come
Fingers
along.
crossed. Fingers crossed your owners don't try and come about here and offer the big bucks and then try and sway any of our
Oh,
players because
£150 million bid for Xhaka. Put it in.
listen, the way the things I'm reading about Newcastle's ownership and the endless pit of money, I wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle start going for the top young talent in the league and the top talent around Europe. I think it's a stepping stone kind of direction you're going in. I think it's compete for Europe first, get into Champions League. I remember when Man City were first taken over, it kind of took them a while to get to where they finally got to. Whereas with Newcastle, it just feels like it's happening quicker.
Mm.
It just feels like it's happening more under the radar. You haven't really taken that scattergun approach in the transfer window. You've been a bit more efficient, in my opinion. Like I mentioned with Botman, you mentioned Bruno Guimaraes, Trippier's been a quality signing. Dan Burn, how can I
Mm.
forget him? Everyone just thought, well,
Newcastle love him.
yeah, what kind of signing is this? But as you mentioned, he's been one of your top performers too. So it feels like it's quicker for Newcastle than it has been for the other clubs that have been taken over by rich owners in the past. But listen, you mentioned Arsenal, Philippe. You mentioned a soft spot, and you've seen what's happened to Arsenal over the years. You mentioned that 03-04 season, so you've got the comparisons there to Arsenal's great side, full of legends, to what's happened in the 10, 15 or so years since. But Mikel Arteta's brought something back, and that's the connection between the fans and the club. He's brought players that we can relate to, we like, we enjoy watching. And you've also mentioned the mentality, because quality is one thing. We can talk about
Mm.
the quality all day of the team, the individual players, the system, but the mentality is a completely different thing. And we can also talk about that. And you know, after the Man United loss, we pick ourselves up and we go to Brentford and we win 3-0 away. The Leeds result 1-0. All hands on deck. Really and truly, Leeds deserved something out that game, but
Mm.
Arsenal dug their heels in and got the 3 points. These moments to me are refreshing because it's been a long time since we've had both the quality and mentality at the same time. So looking at Arsenal, Philippe, what do you make of us this season?
I think, as I said, like I think this is the most entertaining team to watch in Europe. They're playing some great football, and I think one thing that's I don't think people are speaking enough about this Arsenal team is a lot of the players that in the past have there's been questions about. Obviously, Granit Xhaka, Odegaard, who I think there's an argument that you could say he's been the player of the season, and obviously people were questioning was it worth it, to spend all this money on a young kid. And Saliba, I think I don't think it's an argument. I think he's been probably the best centre back in the league, and I remember all the hype Arsenal fans kept saying. They were like, "We signed this guy a couple of years ago. We're going to put him on loan," and then there were the rumors they wanted to like get out of that contract, and then like he's been class. But then even players like Gabriel, who I've always questioned his ability, he stepped up. And Saka, who you talk about the mentality, I don't think anyone's shown a stronger mentality than Bukayo Saka in like the past year. I mean, you look at the Euro final, you look at the other two players in that. I mean, I know Rashford's getting a bit better now, but Sancho hasn't come back, and like Saka just kept coming. And I think he was the best player for England at the Euros. I don't think there's a question about that. And I think
And the World Cup too. Yeah.
oh yeah, the World Cup. But I think the thing about this Arsenal team is that there's also from the outside there's like a likability about this Arsenal team. Like previous Arsenal teams post Invincibles, there was a lot of like spoiled players in those teams. A lot of players that didn't have the mentality, like the Ozils towards the end of his career, and there were a lot of mercenaries that obviously left Arsenal. after a while and went to like City. So yeah, this Arsenal team for me, I think the thing that I'm worried about when we're going to play them is just everywhere on the pitch. There's not just a great first 11 player. I would say, barring defensive midfield and right wing, you have a capable deputy that can come in if an injury happens and you're fine. And that's something that Arsenal haven't had for. I actually don't remember the last time you guys had that. So that's the scary part.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've had a starting 11 we can really get behind and
Mm.
believe in, let alone players coming off the bench and us still being comfortable with the decisions being made. And I know a lot was made of the substitutions against Brighton and changing both fullbacks and how that affected the game. But in general, you look at Tomiyasu and Kieran Tierney coming off the bench in years gone by. I mentioned it before, it'd be Bellerin and Kolasinac or Ainsley Maitland-Niles and God knows who. I've tried to forget about them and erase them out of my memory. So it's a welcome change, definitely. When we look at the game, it's an important one for both of us. Obviously, we're both on different trajectories, not too far apart in the league, but Arsenal have been near enough flawless, aside from the United loss and the Southampton draw. Newcastle have the best defensive record in the league, 11 goals conceded. Where are the key battles on the pitch for you? Who do you need to nullify in order to take something from the game, whether it's a point or all three? I don't know what you're going for, but yeah, you can talk to me about that.
Yeah, I would say the biggest battle is definitely midfield because I think both, as I said, both our defenses have been very good this season. I think your attack's been slightly better than ours. We've obviously had injury problems with attack, but the midfield is the most important part. We need to have Willock, who obviously was an Arsenal player previously. We need Joe Linton and we need Bruno Gomes to like step up because I would say your midfield three has been the best midfield three in the league. There can be no
Yeah.
debate about that. Even if it's, I know City's league over, their midfield three have been great for a couple of years, but I can't see anything past this midfield three. And Partey,
This season, yeah.
obviously when he first came in, there was obviously doubts. There was, a bit of jokes about was this guy as good as people said he was? He had the injury problems, but he's been the best defensive midfielder in the league this season, and something I never saw coming. And Xhaka is sort of having like the Jordan Henderson 1920 type season where he's sort of a player that long wasn't beloved by the fans, and he's sort of winning them over by really stepping up. And then Odegaard, as I said, probably the best midfielder in the league, and I think that's the battle because the moment we let Odegaard do those passes again, we're in trouble.
I'm looking at on paper, I'm looking at Martinelli against Trippier as an interesting battle to say the least, because like you said, Trippier has been one of, if not the most important player for you over at Newcastle, and Martinelli has been one of the most exciting young players at Arsenal, not just this season, but over the last couple. He got a goal and an assist last time out, as well as Odegaard. Saka's got a couple in the last two games. Eddie Nketiah's come in and scored a couple, but I'm looking at Trippier and Martinelli, and I want to see how that one pans out throughout the game. Do you think Martinelli can find much success, considering Trippier tends to, be an attacking type of fullback?
I think the problem for Trippier is that I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it's actually accurate, but I'm pretty sure he has 4 red yellow cards already. So if he gets a 5th one, he'll be suspended for the next game. So maybe that might play on his mind. And I've seen Martinelli like roast even some of the best right backs in this league, like Reece James, Trent. So I don't think Trippier's going to have an easy day. He's going to have to be on his game. And I think Sven Botman, Fabian Schär, they've obviously got to be on their game as well. I think Martinelli, as you said, probably him and Saka, they're sort of this transition. Obviously, we've had, the Sterlings, the Mahrez, and then there's another level with Salah and Mane. But now I see Martinelli and Saka sort of this new generation, and it's going to be hard to stop them, especially I think Saka and Odegaard have probably been the 2 best players in the Premier League this season. So I think, that's going to be the main threat. And obviously, we can't underestimate Eddie Nketiah. I know there have been doubts about him, but he's scored in pretty much every game when he's been asked to.
Yeah, 2-2. He's taking his chance with both hands, but coming up against Botman and Schär and Newcastle's best defensive record, this is definitely one of the biggest tests he's going to face all season. So as an Arsenal fan, good luck to Eddie, and I hope he makes it 3-3 at least. I wouldn't mind the 4 or 5-3, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. We'll see how that pans out.
Yeah, the problem with like whenever we play Arsenal is like I looked at this before we started filming. Like our record at the Emirates is actually pretty bad. Like the last time we beat you was the 10-11 season when Carroll scored and Cancelo got sent off, and then I remember the 7-3, which not a great day. But the last time we actually scored at the Emirates was the 14-15 season. We haven't scored at your ground since then. So like the clean sheets, it's bad enough that we'd lose at your ground, but we also don't score. That's the thing that I'm worried about is can we actually break that defense? Can we like get past Partey and Ramsdale, who I haven't mentioned, who's also been very good this season, and someone who I think, as you know, I remember when he was announced for Arsenal, everyone was like, "What? You know, the Sheffield United goalkeeper who got relegated, like every team has been in." But you know, he's obviously stepped up. So yeah, that's probably the biggest worry going into this game is just our record against Arsenal at the Emirates has been like piss poor.
Do you think you're coming for 3 points, or do you think
No.
you're coming to be resolute first and foremost and see what comes off the back of it?
Yeah, I think for me the best like thing we can hope for is a draw, like either maybe a 1-1 or 0-0 draw. Like if it somehow we get lucky and sneak in a late goal in a 1-0 win, I don't think that's going to happen, but that's the only way I see us getting the 3 points. But I'm hoping we at least get something out of it. As we got Man United kind of breathing down our necks, and then Liverpool are sort of coming back, so we've got to start getting points.
Yeah, we've mentioned key battles. You've talked about the midfield battle. I've mentioned Martinelli, Trippier being one to look out for. Let's get into predictions, Philippe. You know, Arsenal, the home team on the Big Six, I predicted 2-1. On Forever Arsenal, I predicted 2-1. And I'm going to stick to my 2-1 prediction. I think it'll be a tight game, a tough game. I said similar against Brighton away, but that didn't kind of pan out the way I thought it would, much to my joy. You know, we got a few goals in the first half and kind of buried the game in the second half. I know that third disallowed goal could have caused some upset, but it was disallowed and we kind of saw the game out after that. But against Newcastle, I think it's going to be very tough. Best defense in the league, flying high, confidence high. I think behind Arsenal, you are the most confident team in the league. You are the most informed team in the league if I'm looking at expectation to reality. So I'm going to stick with a 2-1. What are you going for, Philippe?
I'll go for a confident and resilient 1-1. I think we'll get a draw, but it won't be pretty. It'll probably be like a really nasty 1-1 draw, but I would say you guys are definitely have your favorites. You know, you guys have been the best team in the league, so anything other than anything other than a loss, I'm not going to really be too upset.
How important is it for Newcastle to get the first goal? And that's just a
Very
genuine
important,
question.
I think.
Yeah.
As I said, like our record against Arsenal, we don't score goals at the Emirates. So if we could score a goal and we could be really resolute, I think we could maybe open Arsenal up a bit more, let them come to us, and maybe try and punish them on the counter if we can. But I would say if you guys score first, it's going to be very hard for us to get the goal back. I think after that, you'll have confidence. I've seen what happens when Arsenal go 1-0 up. It's very hard to get back at them.
Yeah. Listen, Philippe, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. We're just over 20 minutes in. We've done our predictions. I've gone 2-1 Arsenal. You've gone for a hard-fought 1-1. You've laid the importance of that first goal out there. And I agree. I think if Arsenal get the first goal, we win the game. And that's something we've tended to do well this season. We're the only team not to concede in the first 15 minutes. And every time we've taken the lead, we've only dropped points in one game, the Southampton game, the 1-1 draw. So, yeah, I hope Arsenal get the first goal. I hope we kick off the game the same way we kicked off against Brighton a couple of minutes in, Saka putting the ball in the back of the net. But we'll see how this one goes. Philippe's saying no. Philippe, is there anything you want to promote? Is there anything you do out there that
no,
I can put in the description?
Just watch the Big Six. It's the best show ever. And hopefully pretty soon they're going to have some Newcastle fan come on and maybe kick out Tobes.
Kick out Tobes. Listen, I wouldn't mind. They're lucky to be there, to say the least. But it is what it is. Philippe, thank you for coming on, my brother. Really appreciate the support. Like I said, the Big Six, box to box, my AFTV content, my own channel, all of that. Love for the love. And when I say that, I mean it, because the journey's been mad so far, and long may it continue. But people like you make it worthwhile. You know, the support and the love is mad to me. So I appreciate that. Philippe in Australia. People in the comments, show some love. I know we want the 3 points, but Philippe has been a pleasure to talk to. So big up, Philippe. Hope you and the family are well. Hope you had a good New Year's and New Year's Day. And I hope you have a good 2023 after this game.
Yeah, you as well, man. You as well.
Thank you very much, Philippe. Love for the love, people. Make sure you guys hit the like button out there if you haven't already. Let's get it up. The games have been coming thick and fast. We've got a little break after this Newcastle game, Oxford game in the FA Cup coming up next Monday. but let's get the job done against Newcastle first. Give us your predictions, key battles, all of that in the comment section below. I'll engage with you guys in the comments, and we'll keep it moving from there. Hit the like button, people. We're out. Peace.
Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.